honey is vegan, just like fruit is vegan, because fruit and vegetables cannot reproduce without bees. They need the bees to pollinate them. The bees make surplus honey, more than they can use, and this is probably because man has been carrying them around the world forever. Tens of thousands of years of documentation of the Africans and the Europeans trading skeps of honeybees. Honey was light for the entire Holy Roman Church due to its wax. Honeybees have been around for so long, man has cave paintings. I just cannot believe somebody would say that honey was not vegan. I'm sure that's because the meat industry has started that, because they do reverse opposition. You got to have bees to make fruit and vegetables. Vegetables need seeds pollinated. And the way that we produce crops for the last few thousands of years in great big fields that are sterile and have no insects, they need to have bees trucked in so that we can even pollinate these crops. And honey is 100% plant product. And yes, the same reason that you would say, I can't eat a food that's been prepared in the kitchen because a human being has cooked it. We can't do that. We can't enslave humans and cook them. Well, you pay them, and it's not slavery. We pay our bees. Bees just don't survive very well on their own. They're not like your ordinary wild insects. They don't just become pests. Bees are hard to keep alive, and in some areas of the earth, bees have died off entirely, and only in the beehives where they were cared for did they survive. There were tracheal mite deaths in Europe and England. There were varroa mite deaths, and still are. There were major disease deaths. There's been tons of times, every single decade, where there are literally many seasons where you have to feed the bees sugar or they'll die out. They are just as domestic as any animal, even though they're insects. If there is a domestic insect, the bee is that. It needs the beekeeper to survive, and I am serious. There are literally no wild bees where I live because of the varroa mite. If I don't take care of my bees, they don't make it. And it's hard work. The beekeeper is called a beekeeper because it takes some real keeping and some real work to keep them going. There's all kinds of predators that attack honeybees. There's honey badgers, there's ants, there's bears, there's mites, there's beetles. There are even other animals that do it, like skunks and other insectivorous animals. And you've got, of course, diseases and even fungus. You've got real problems with bees. They need help. And bees are insects. Would you really, really, literally let lice live on your body because you don't want to harm an insect? Or would you let roaches infest your home because you don't want to harm an insect? Or would you let fleas literally murder your dog and ticks murder your dog and cat because you don't want to harm an insect? Insects and animals are a little bit separate, just like plants are separate. Oh yeah, let's not even eat fruit anymore because they're beating the pecans down with cane sticks and shaking the trees vigorously. That's ridiculous. Our stomachs, our insides have intestinal flora. We have bacteria in our bodies that help digest foods. Now, do we really want to stop eating because we don't want to harm bacteria? Honeybees, I love them, and I care for mine, and I don't kill queens, and I don't do all these things that some people who are anti-honey say. Yeah, you do have different people who treat things different ways. I've got people that spray their vegetables constantly, even though they don't need to. I've got a neighbor who sprays constantly his field of hay, even though it's absolutely not necessary, and he kills my bees. You've got to watch what you do. I mean, you don't want to just buy from somebody that you think is harmful and abusive to nature and uses herbicide around their bees, or just uses chemicals that are harmful to the human body, like nerve agents like coumaphos to kill mites or something like that, or apivar, fluvalinate, or just things like that. You want to be careful what you put into your body when you eat, but The honeybee does not mind one bit letting its honey be taken. It does not mind, because it gets a trade. It's like, it works. Everyone works, but it works too. And believe me, they're called worker bees. They enjoy working. And if you take their honey, it's not a problem. They make more. And they can take and make so much honey that it hurts them. They can actually overload their hive to where they have to swarm out to find a new home because their hive is so loaded up. And then they swarm out at a time of year when it's not good for them to swarm, like in the fall. So it's very important to keep a balance in the size box that you have. They really do need the beekeeper. And fruit is a bee product. Vegetables are a bee product. So if you didn't have the bee, you wouldn't have the fruit. You wouldn't have the vegetable. Nature has a mesh. Animals urinate and they make the grass grow. Grass can't make its own nitrogen. It needs animal nitrogen to survive. That's why the prairies are dying off, because the massive herds of bison have been exterminated deliberately by the government to stop indigenous peoples from surviving. And they're still, exterminating the bison in Yellowstone every single year to keep the herd down below 5,000. They cut it in half, exterminate half the bison, and send the meat to the surrounding reservations so the natives don't get restless and stay appeased and quiet. And that's just what they do. But honey is not a meat, and you do not have to kill to create honey. Honey is going to be created by the bees whether you do anything, as long as they live and stay healthy. And they're going to produce way more than they need, and I think that might be an adaptation because they've been with us so many tens of thousands of years that they produce enough so that we'll want to keep them around, because believe me, they sting. And whenever you work with bees, you're getting stung, and it's extremely painful. But in order to keep taking care of these stinging insects, which need their stingers to protect themselves from predators who would destroy the hives and destroy the trees they're in, they have to sting. So the beekeeper gets a reward for protecting them. And as you see, I'm protecting these bees. You see this electric fence around these bees? That's to keep predators from destroying them. And I have to feed these bees when it gets dry on some years. Most years it gets very, very dry in the summer. I have to feed them. I have to feed them sugar. They have to have it, because the flowers only produce nectar when there's perfect conditions. And honey's good for you, and it's good for the environment to eat honey. Bees are good for the environment. They pollinate all the trees. And there's many places where they were claiming bees weren't native, and now we find that they actually were native there, because we've got fossil records like Neo-Arctis, a fossil record of a modern honeybee that's actually looks like a German black to everybody, and it was found, I believe, in Nevada, and that's a fact. So we've got some real issues with the meat industry always trying to claim that there's some reason we can't live without a corpse in our diet. You got to consume a corpse, even though all the other animals that are vegetarian and designed to be vegetarian don't have to consume a corpse. But there is no way that I can tell you that honey is not vegan, because honey is. It's a completely pure plant product. It's taken from plants. I don't have any idea why somebody would say that it wasn't. I've looked at all their reasons, which are not reasons. I don't believe in hurting bugs, and I don't use any pesticides whatsoever on bugs. My garden is pesticide free. Yeah, I have bugs. Like, these are apple trees in front of the hives. There's bugs all over them right now. There's some kind of a beetle, but it'll pass and the tree will come back fine. The bugs come in stages. I just ignore that. I'm not a commercial beekeeper, and I'm not a commercial fruit grower, but I do honestly tell you that honey is vegan. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And you're still a vegan if you have to kill fleas, ticks, lice. You're still a vegan if you don't allow your people to tell you that honey is not vegan. I mean, it's vegan. I don't care what these idiots are telling you. I know that it's vegan. And I don't have to do anything to them to get their honey. I simply get to the top and I pull out some capped honey that's ripened, And I replaced the comb, and within a few weeks they filled it back up again. And it doesn't do them any harm at all, and they don't mind a bit. That's just the way it really is.